Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Sheraaz. Thank you very much to the Iraqi Welfare Association for letting me speak to you guys today. A very good friend of mine, engineer at Heathrow Airport, Mo Tarir, told me about you guys and asked me if I'd like to speak. So thank you very much for letting me speak to everybody today. I've got a short presentation that I'd written for another group that I presented to. So would it be okay for me to run that presentation now? It's originally about 25 minutes long, but I'll try and speed it up and condense it into 20 minutes. Okay, so it's just a quick presentation about how I became an airline pilot, the challenges that I faced, and the route that I took. What I fly is one of these. You can see it in the window, a 787-9. So let's move on. Okay, so I'm from inner city Birmingham. I'm a first generation immigrant to Pakistani parents, and I think we have a very, very similar culture and upbringing to the Iraqi families. We share the same faith, we're from the same part of the world, so I think we are very, very similar. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to you about the route that I took into flying, the benefits of the path I took, my flying career to date, and any advice I can give you. So how did it start? Well, with everything, it starts as a dream when we're a little child. And this NASA astronaut, Jessica Watkins, put it across really well. She said, when you think of a big dream, it feels like a faraway goal that's unachievable. But she said, if you put one foot in front of the other daily with focus and determination, eventually those footsteps become a path to your dreams, to your goal. So I'm from a working class background. I'm not from a privileged, wealthy background at all. My dad used to drive the number 50 bus. You can see on the bottom left of the screen there. I went to an inner city school in an area called Sparkbrook, Birmingham, which is pretty much an immigrant area. And I went to that school on the bottom called Montgomery School. I was very, very fortunate in that mum and dad were always really supportive of us and of working hard at school, and we had some really, really nice teachers who really wanted us to do well. And one year at school, every year the school used to give out awards for achievement, and I was given this little plastic model of an aeroplane. It was the first model that I'd ever been given, and as I was putting it together, I thought, wow, these airplanes are really cool. And that's kind of what sparked my interest in aviation. So as I got older, I got more and more interested in airplanes, and specifically military airplanes. So when I became 14 years old, I joined an organization called the Air Training Corps. Now it's called the Royal Air Force Air Cadets. And it's a totally, there is no compulsion, there's no compulsory military service aspect to it. You only do it between the ages of 13 and 21. And it basically gives you the option to learn to fly for free. This picture in the center here, this is called a Chipmunk aircraft. It used to be a basic trainer in the Air Force. And this is my first experience of real flying. I was 14 years old, and we took off from an RAF station. And when we got to a safe altitude, the commander of the aircraft, he hands control to you. So there I was, a 14-year-old cadet controlling an aircraft. Obviously, he did the takeoff and the landing, but up in the air, he let me control the aircraft, and I just fell in love with flying. Later on through the Air Training Corps, I was able to get my glider pilot wings, and I flew this little aircraft here called the Venture Motor Glider on my own at 17 years old. So this experience in the Air Training Corps led me to apply to the Air Force. I passed selection, but unfortunately I began to wear glasses, and back then the rules were very, very strict in that you couldn't fly if you wore glasses. So I thought, well, what shall I do next then? So I thought I'll carry on with my education, So I went to Hatfield Polytechnic, as it was then. Now it's called University of Hertfordshire, and I did a combined studies degree in computing and business. While there, I still wanted to do something military, so I joined the University of London Officer Training Corps as an Army officer cadet. Again, there's no compulsion for you to join the regular military once you've finished your degree. It's just a way of you experiencing what it's like to be an Army officer. So through that experience, I kind of inquired with the Army Air Corps to maybe I could fly helicopters. And there's a picture of an Apache there. And the pilot there is actually a lady, because now in the UK military, we have lady pilots who fly frontline aircraft. However, the same deal was with the Army in that I couldn't wear glasses to actually fly. So I thought, well, what should I do then? So I basically finished my degree, which was in computing and business, in 1990. But unfortunately, there was a recession, so there were no graduate jobs going. So I basically worked as an administration temp for a couple of years, trying to find a computing job. Eventually, I did a 6-month internship where you are working for free, so the company can assess what you're like and whether or not they want to keep you on. And eventually, through that, I was able to get my first full-time job 3 years after finishing my degree. But now I was looking at getting into civilian flying, and I saw how much it cost. And I'm not wealthy, so I had to decide, I'm going to have to either work really, really hard and save my pennies, not buy an expensive car, just drive a small little rubbishy car. So that's what I decided to do. And one of the things that kept me going was this quote by Otto Lilienthal. He's one of the pioneers of German aviation. And he said, to invent an aeroplane is nothing. To build one is something, but to fly is everything. And that's what kept me motivated. So after saving my money for 10 years, I was nearly 31, and I'd saved enough now to enroll at Oxford Air Training School for my pilot's license course. This course took about 18 months. I remember one of my instructors jokingly said to me, he said, Sheraaz, every takeoff is optional, but every landing is absolutely mandatory. So as part of this course, you study 14 subjects in ground school. They're not necessarily that deep in information, but there's just a huge volume of information that you have to cover. And for each exam, for each subject, you will sit 4 exams. So you'll sit 2 progress tests to see how you're getting on. You'll sit the mock exam and then the final exam. So having to sit 14 subjects, 14 times 4 is 56 exams that you have to pass. And the pass mark is quite high at 75%, but obviously we aim for 100%. So once you've got the ground school out of the way and all the flying training, the final phase is in a 737 simulator. And you can just see a picture of it up there. So I'd been there for 18 months, finally graduated with my nice shiny pilot's license. Unfortunately, the industry then took a nosedive after the events of 9/11, and there were hardly any new pilot jobs going. So the question is now, do I return to IT or do I find a job somewhere in the industry? So what I decided to do was, if I can get a foot in the industry somewhere, then maybe I'll get an opportunity to, talk to training captains, maybe do a bit of networking, and then maybe get in through the side door. So I became a flight dispatcher at my local airport here in Birmingham. And what does a flight dispatcher do? Well, they basically manage the turnaround of an aircraft. So when the aircraft comes in, it has to be unloaded, the passenger's taken off, has to be serviced, cleaned, engineered, fueled. The crew need to know the details of the outbound flight, and then you've got to get everything loaded on. So my job is to basically manage that with all the agencies, all the teams that do those particular jobs. Now, I'd given myself a time limit of 3 years to get an airline job, because if I hadn't got one by then, odds are there'll be all these bright young people coming straight out of flight school, taking all the jobs. And I didn't think the airlines would be interested in a 36-year-old Muslim guy from Birmingham. However, one day I was dispatching a captain from a company called Flybe, and I'd worked with him as a dispatcher for the last 3 years, and he said, "Oh, Sheraaz, you're a good bloke, and I'm running the recruitment this year for Flybe. So if you give me your CV, I'll take it down to our headquarters in Exeter, and I'll show it to the right people." He said, "I can't promise you anything, but this is the least that I can do for you because I like you." And yeah, thanks be to him, Captain Eddie Danks, I was given an interview and a simulator check, and at just before my 36th birthday, alhamdulillah, I was offered the job. So my first job was flying this airplane on the left, and I'm just standing in front of it there. It's a Dash 8 Q400 turboprop aircraft. So as you can see, the route to my first job wasn't easy. You know, I had to save a lot of money. Plans had to change. But we used to have a phrase in the army, and that is, when things don't quite run to plan, you adapt, you improvise, and you will overcome. So what are the benefits of the path I took? This is a picture looking out of what we have, what we call the heads-up display on our aircraft, where all the information that we need is projected onto this glass screen that sits just in front of our face. So for the whole time, we can just look straight out, and we don't have to look down at our instruments. It's a really cool piece of kit. So what are the benefits of the path I took? Well, because I decided to take the long route and save the money, it basically leaves you at a less financial risk once you've finished, just in case there aren't any jobs around. Because some of my friends on my course, you know, they'd taken out loans, their parents had remortgaged their house, and now they had no job, but they had this massive debt to pay. So that's what I would suggest, sort of finance-wise. Benefits of a full-time course, continuity of flying training. You know, having your flying lessons close together just helps to consolidate all that knowledge, and you'll just progress better. And then, of course, you know, being on a full-time course, 100% of your time is focused on you getting through your course. And if you come across any difficulties, not quite understanding something, you're there at a flying college, and you can ask for support from your colleagues. And if your colleagues are getting stuck, well, then you can offer them your support. And it is the fastest route to getting your commercial pilot's license. What did working at the airport on the ground give me? Well, it gave me a fantastic insight into what is involved in getting an airliner away. You know, working with different teams, it just helps build, you know, the whole team ethos and how to work together to get the mission done. And as for my time in the Air Training Corps and the Officer Training Corps, well, the Air Training Corps helped me so much with a lot of the academics and the ground school subjects behind flying, because you actually get taught that in the Air Training Corps. And again, obviously helping to develop your character, your teamwork, and your leadership skills. Yeah, as well as the opportunity to, you know, take part in lots of other activities, lots of adventure training, camping, hiking. You get to visit RAF stations. You get to climb inside, you know, RAF aircraft and helicopters, and it's all, you know, for free. You know, you can learn to fly for free in the Air Training Corps, which is fantastic. So my flying career to date, going from the bottom left, I started off on the Dash 8 Q400 turboprop, was on that for 3.5 years, then moved on to the Embraer 195 and 175 regional jet, that's in the middle. Went out to Qatar Airways in Doha for 2 years, and then I came back to Virgin Atlantic about 5 years ago, just over 5 years ago. So this is the inside of the Dash 8. From the outside, it kind of looks a little bit old because it's got propellers, but in fact, it's a very modern turboprop aircraft. You can see on the displays there, they're all computer screens. Yeah, so there's none of those old, what we call clockwork dials anymore. These lovely computer screens, and it's a very fast, very quiet aeroplane. You can just see the facts and figures up there. Surprisingly, one of the shortest flights we did was only 12 minutes long. That was between the Channel Islands, Guernsey and Jersey. It's the average flight of about 45 minutes. So, going up, Birmingham to Edinburgh, off to Belfast, very, very short flights. And it was very, very busy. We used to do about 4 flights every day. So after 3.5 years on the dash, I got onto the Embraer aircraft. I was there about 5.5 years. We used to fly slightly longer routes on the jet because it was capable of doing that. My favorite flight was going across the Alps to Milan in northern Italy. There's a little picture of that on the bottom right. You can just see the Alps and just make out the orange lights of the little towns and villages that are nestled in the Alpine valleys. And we also used to fly to some challenging airfields. We've got a picture of Innsbruck just after we departed on the bottom left. You see it's this little thin strip of a runway surrounded by mountains that go up to 14,000 feet. So you have to go on a special training course to be allowed to fly into Innsbruck. It's a really challenging approach, but really, really satisfying. So as I said, after Flybe, I went out to Qatar Airways, was lucky enough to get onto the Boeing 787-8 aircraft. And if you look on the left-hand picture, that's the flight deck. And just to the left of my head, you can just about make out a sort of glass screen that's hanging down from the ceiling. And that's our head-ups display, which had all that green writing on. We did a real mix of flying at Qatar, everything from short haul hops to Dubai and Kuwait, which was just 45-minute flights. Medium haul coming up to Northwest Europe, coming up to England, Italy, about 6-7 hours. And the long haul flights we did were out to Bali in Indonesia and Tokyo in Haneda, which were about 11 hours long, and we used to carry 3 pilots. Unfortunately, I had to come back from Qatar because my family was still living in Birmingham. The plan was for them to get out, but that didn't happen. So after 2 years, I had to come back because I was missing my family too much. So after Qatar, joined Virgin Atlantic on the 787-9. This slide's a little bit out of date. I've been here just over 5 years now. Everything we do here is long haul. And during the COVID crisis, we had to step up into ultra long haul flights, which is basically, it's a long haul flight, but we come straight back. The reason for this was because of COVID. We weren't allowed to get off the airplane when we got to China. And if you can see on the bottom left of the screen, that's actually the inside of one of our aircraft where we were bringing back PPE for the NHS. And those were some of the most purposeful and useful flying that I personally have ever done. They were very, very long flights. We were on the aircraft for 24 hours, flying there for 12 hours. And then we would basically take 7 pilots with us. So 3 of us would fly to China. And then when we got there, they'd load all the cargo and the PPE on. And then the other 4 guys, they would bring it back and we would try to rest. But still, you're on the aircraft for 24 hours. And from leaving my house in the morning to coming back the next day, it could be about a 32-hour duty. But really, really satisfying flights. So those are my stats so far. I was furloughed for the last 10 months, so I didn't fly. I started flying again in May. So hopefully once the pandemic is dealt with, we can get those flying hours ticking over again. So what advice can I give you? Again, this is a picture through the heads-up display coming back into Heathrow. If you look through that circle just to the right, you can just see runway 27 right at Heathrow there. So what advice can I give? It is expensive to get your license, so I would say get somebody else to pay for your training if you can. Airlines will have to start sponsoring people and offering scholarships once the doors open again, because before COVID there was a predicted pilot shortage, and that shortage is going to be there when the doors open up. Or you could get the Queen to pay for you to fly by joining the military. You can join the Air Force, the Navy, or Army Aviation and fly helicopters. So that's regarding how you'd fund your training. Or there are also flying organisations like the Guild of Air Pilots, the British Airline Pilots Association. There's lots more out there who will help you to fund towards your pilot training. And then the question is, do you want to opt for short haul flying or long haul flying? For me, the benefit of short haul flying, the likes of Flybe, EasyJet, Jet2, Ryanair, is that you're back home every night, which is good if you've got young families, which I had at that time. And you do get to fly more often. You do 4 takeoffs and landings every day. Flying long haul, as I do now, I'm lucky to get 1 actual takeoff and landing a month, maybe 2, but I'll be doing 4 or 5 flights. But on the other 3 flights, I'll be acting as we call the relief pilot, and he sits in the cruise for 7 hours, which gives the other 2 guys a 3-hour break each, so they can go back to the crew bunks and have a sleep. So the other 2 guys do the takeoff and landing, and the cruise pilot just sits on board during the cruise phase. So you don't fly as much as you'd like in the long haul world, but you do get to see the world. And again, with short haul flying, because you're doing so many takeoffs and landings, it's really good for your hands-on skills. So you're retaining your skills that much better, and you don't fly as much at night. Because here, I just came back from Lahore, Pakistan on Monday, and that was a night flight, landing back into Heathrow at 6:30. Coming back from Johannesburg and Hong Kong, we land between 4:30 and 6:30 in the morning. And those are really, really tough flights, without any sleep. As I said, I've just gone through some of the points for long haul. Again, skill retention could be an issue because you don't actually fly as much, but then that's why pilots who enter long haul, we usually have at least 6 years of experience, because that's what you're really relying on. When you're tired and you've been up all night, it's that bag of experience. But you do get to see the world. I mean, on the top left, you've got dawn over Africa. On the right, that's us landing back into Heathrow early in the morning. The bottom right, that's the northern lights, which we can see sometimes, the aurora borealis coming back from the west coast of America over Canada. I've only seen them that bright once, but it's an incredible sight. It really is. It's so magical. The bottom center, that's Hong Kong at night. And on the left, that's us just in the cruise over Asia. One thing to bear in mind, if you're going to become a pilot, you will be in a mode of continual study, because we're actually checked more often than surgeons. Every 6 months, we have to go into this little box on the top screen, the simulator, where they test us, with all the emergencies, if an engine catches fire, if it falls off, if we lose our hydraulics, if we lose our landing gear. So we practice this every 6 months. And once a year, one of those checks is your license, your job depends on it. You must pass. And the second check that we do, that's more of a training check. Because your procedures do change from time to time, your systems do slightly alter. So we just kind of stay on top of it. Every year, you have to have your annual medical, because obviously you want a fit and healthy pilot who's taking you away on your holidays. And again, your job is dependent on you passing your medical. And because we spend so long, sat down doing this job, it isn't the most healthy job. So you really have to, really concentrate on, if you're eating right, you have to manage your sleep, especially on these long flights. And in order to advance your career, I mean, I've had to move airlines 3 times to kind of progress my career. So that's just something to bear in mind. And one thing that the pandemic has taught us is you really need to get onto the most modern aircraft that you can, because they are the most fuel efficient. And when the industry gets a little bit tight, the airline managers only want to fly the most fuel efficient aircraft. For example, we used to have 747 jumbo jet sets, Virgin, but they've all been retired now because they just burn too much fuel. And the only aircraft we've got left are our 787s, where I fly, and the A350s. But the big thing with this industry is you really need to be committed, because it is lifelong study, and you need to be flexible. So just to finish off, dream big. Don't let anybody tell you you cannot do anything. You can accomplish anything if you put your mind to it. Work hard, and if things don't quite run to plan, then adapt your plan, improvise with what you've got, and you will overcome.
There are quite a few questions. I feel like your PowerPoint did cover most of them.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll give 1 minute or so. Let's see. So, can you be a pilot if you have glasses? Well, you're wearing glasses right now. That's answered. How long left till you become a captain?
Okay, good question. If you stay flying in the short haul world, so if you stay with your EasyJets and your Ryanairs, you could be a captain in as little as 5 years. But because in long haul, you need at least 6 years experience to get into long haul first. And in our airline, it takes at least 12 years to get command. So it could take you 18 years to get command if you go long haul. If you join British Airways, it could take 22 years. So with long haul, you know, there's pros and cons. Yes, you fly bigger airplanes, the pay is a little bit more, you get to fly to nice places, but your progression to the left seat will take 3-4 times as long.
Perfect. And do you have to have a degree in engineering? Somebody asked.
No, absolutely not. You don't even need a degree. You don't even need A-levels. I've just seen my good friend Mohammed popped up on the top of my screen. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Yeah, really, cool. The course, your pilot's license course takes you from 0 knowledge and 0 flying hours all the way to your airline pilot's course. And as I said, you have to study 14 ground school subjects, and they're not that difficult. The depth of knowledge is not that deep, but it's just the volume that you have to go through. It is literally, it's like being fed with a fire hose. So if you've got just basic GCSE level academics, you can be a pilot. Wow. You don't need A-levels and you don't need a degree. But what I would say is get as educated as you can, because what this pandemic has shown is that our jobs are very the industry runs in a 10-year cycle of peaks and troughs. And if you've got another career to fall back on, if you've got a wider education, then that is of absolute benefit to you.